Okay, so we are working on EE6 still, and that is I can write equations. I can write equations and solve when variable is given. Okay, now today that's going to be specifically multiplication and division. Okay, multiplication and division. And we think we've got a pretty good idea of how to explain that in a way that'll make it for you easy to see and understand. Okay? So, as with all of them, we're going to start with some kind of story problem that we're going to need to write an equation about. And that problem today is the farmer's market is selling bags of apples. In every bag there are 3 apples. Okay, so we need to come up with some variables. Obviously one there is probably B. And that's going to equal number of bags of apples. Right? Now, there's going to probably be another variable. Do we know what that other variable is? What do you think? What do you think, Daria? Apples. But again, we want to be detailed and specific. So we probably want to say total number of apples. Right? Do we want to use A for apples or T for totals? A? Okay. So A equals total number of apples. Okay? So far so good. That shouldn't be anything new. We've been doing that for the last couple of days. The only thing that can be a little tricky is, remember, you want to have detailed and specific variables defined. Okay? So the way that is best to show the relationships between these equations is with the ratio table. So step 2 in solving these is make a ratio table. So I'm going to put B here, and that of course is bags of apples. And I'm going to put A here for total apples, right? Okay, and so it says the farmer's market is selling bags of apples. In every bag there are 3 apples. So 1 bag would be how many apples? And in 2 bags that would be? 6. And in 3 bags that would be? 9, yes. And in 4 bags that would be? 12, yes. And in 5 bags that would be? 15, exactly. Every time we add a bag of apples, every time we add 1 bag, we add 3 apples. So we go up by 3 every time, right? So that's simple enough. You guys have done ratio tables before, so it shouldn't be too hard for you to fill those in. Okay. Now here's where the new stuff comes in. Writing 2 equations. Why are there 2 equations? Because we have 2 variables. So we can have B equal to something, and we can have A equal to something, right? So now we got to figure out this stuff, and that's sometimes the hard stuff. If we want to equal B, look at this line here, okay? And these will help us see a relationship. What would we do to 3 to get to 1? Bianca? We could subtract 2. The only thing is, remember, ratio table has to work for every single one. So let's try the second one. 6 minus 2. So that one would not work. What else could we do to 3 to get to 1? Max? Divide. Divide by 3. So if we take 3 and divide by 3, we get 1. Does that work every time? 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Yes. So, for something to equal B, we have to divide by 3. So we say A, any number in A divided by 3 will give you B. Make sense? Caitlin? Okay. We are going to do the next one, what equals A. So we're looking at the opposite way. What would we need to do to a number in B to get it to A? What do we do to go from 1 to 3? Caitlin? Yeah, we would multiply by 3. 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12, 5 times 3 is 15. So if we multiply any number in B by 3, we get A. So A equals B times 3, or to write that in a more correct mathematical way, A equals 3B. So far so good? This table can really help you see that relationship. What are you doing to go from B to A? So A would have to equal B and whatever that operation is, right? Okay? Make sense? Now, wouldn't it be great if that was all they wanted us to do, but that's not how this class works. You should know that by now. So, they're sometimes going to ask us questions about that information. So, for example, suppose we have a truck has 600 apples. How many bags could be made? If you have a truck that has 600 apples, how many bags could be made? Now, I know a lot of you are going to go, oh, I can do that in my head, no problem. Boom, this is the answer. But again, it's not just about getting to the answer, it's about using your equation and showing that you have that skills to explain it, okay? So first thing, if we're a little confused, is to look at our variables. Which variables do we know? Do we know what B is? Do we know how many bags there were? In this question, a truck has 600 apples, how many bags could be made? Do we know the number of bags? No. It's asking us how many bags, so how could we possibly know it? So that's our question mark. Now, what about total number of apples? Do we know how many total apples there are? How many? 600. So we figured out which variables we know and which ones we don't. We don't know what number of bags there are, so we probably want to use this equation. So we would write B equals A divided by 2. Okay? And then my next step would be to substitute. So B equals 600 divided by 2. And then B equals, I'm going to solve, and 600 divided by 2 is, oh, not 2, 3. Whoops. 3. 600 divided by 3 is 200. And then my fourth step is to label. What would be my label there? Bags. Yes, a lot of people want to say apples, but it's not just apples, it's bags of apples, right? Bags of apples. Okay. Now, why did I do it that way? Well, if you turn back to page 83, right here, on the section that talks about formulas, remember the step for a formula is write the formula you're using, which is the equation we made up. 2 is substitute what you know, the variable you know. And then 3 is solve using order of operation. And then 4 is label. So when I look back here, that's exactly what I did. I wrote my equation that I was using, I substituted, I solved, and I labeled. We're following those 4 steps, right? Okay? Now, what if there was another question that says, if the market sold 25 bags, how many apples were sold? So again, I know a lot of you are probably going, yeah, I can figure that on my head, Mrs. Johnson. I don't need this equation. But remember, the part we're actually doing is the equation piece. It's not about necessarily solving, it's about using and putting your knowledge to use. Okay? So, let's talk about variables. Okay? Do I know how many bags? Yes, how many? 25, exactly. Do I know what the total is? Total number of apples? No, that's what I'm trying to find out. Okay, so I want to figure out what A is, so I need to use this one that's going to tell me what A equals, right? So I would say A, I'm going to draw a little line here just to separate these two. I'm going to say A equals 3B, right? I wrote my formula, that's step 1. Then I'm going to say A equals 3 times 25. That's my substitute. And then I'm going to say A equals 75. That's my solve. And then I'm going to label it. And what's my label? Apples. Okay. Questions? Are we good? Feel pretty good about those? Excellent.